Cassidy Hutchinson gave some remarkable testimony about Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, seemingly unwilling to engage. What did you make of her recollection that, you know, she or Tony Ornato or Pat Cipollini, people were trying to tell him things and he was sitting on his sofa, scrolling on his phone, unresponsive, especially, you know, when the Secret Service and she were trying to tell Meadows about the threat of violence?
I was actually texting with a colleague of mine who was in the West Wing at the time, and I said, look, was Mark just completely incompetent, or was he having a nervous breakdown? And the response was that it was a little bit of both.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here. And Mark Meadows completely incompetent? Of course he is. He's a Trump appointee. That's a prerequisite for the job, because all Trump appointees must be blindly subservient, submissive, spineless, soulless, corrupt, conniving, and all-around lowlife. Anyone evil enough to fill those qualities is going to be incompetent. That's a given.
Mick, first of all, when you say things could get very dark for Donald Trump, what do you mean?
I mean, I've been defending the president over the course of the last year, even though I quit my job over the way he conducted himself during the riot. I never really thought until yesterday that he was even capable of inciting the riot. But if he knew those weapons were there and said, they're not here for me, let's go down to the Capitol, that is problematic for the president. If there's a direct line from the Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, right-wing extremist groups into the White House, that's a problem for the president. And Cassidy Hutchinson mentions yesterday for the first time that Mark Meadows was in communication with those folks.
Trump wants yes men. He wants people that will pant and sweat and do everything they can in loyal service to their master. He wants rabid lunatics who will throw away their everything in obedience to their crime lord. And he requires people who will spit on their oath and on our flag in the name of Trump conquest.
If there was really witness tampering, which is, I don't think, something that's not getting nearly as much attention. It came very late in the hearing yesterday. But if there's really witness tampering by Trump or by someone in his inner circle, that's a serious problem.
We all feared what was coming on January the 6th. It's like a child who won't listen to reason and must make that mistake to learn from the experience. Only instead of formative youth, we've got legions who are supposed to be adults. And instead of learning from any experience, they just keep compounding the same mistakes over and over. And isn't that the definition of insanity? We knew Trump was stoking violence and hostility from the MAGA zombies, and it was never going to stop until something stops it. Like a freight train with no brakes, the throttle stuck open and an upcoming bridge is out. There was never going to be no safe end to what Donald Trump and his cronies were brewing. The only people that could stop it were the maggots themselves. If people didn't worship Trump like Lucifer, his brain-dead movement would be dead in its tracks. But no matter how much common sense we tried to pour into these lobotomized zombie fools, they all stayed on their one narrow track. The same type of master-slave relationship that Trump commands from his lackeys. And it's not even out of greed like in the case of Meadows, who wants to coattail off of fascism to secure his own power that he otherwise never could achieve in a fair and legal society. But instead, for the maggots, it's just pure submission. They get nothing but abuse from their master. But they're too dumb to know any better. The right-wing media whispers sweet nothings into their ears, and with their lies, nothings take on a whole new meaning, and the maggots fulfill their duty as pawns on the fascist chess table. We've been on this track long enough that the sane people and the criminally complicit have been weeded out and have taken their corners. You either on the side of American justice, freedom, and democracy, or you're a rung on the ladder of the Trump crime empire, and rungs are meant to be stepped on. There is no good outcomes if your allegiance lies with Mango Mussolini. Those of us with enough brain cells have pondered history in years past and looked at times when a population has fallen into corruption. We all said, how could the people fall for such evil dictators? And we never dreamed that third world corruption could ever sniff the shores of the United States of America. Now we look at people with Trump signs in their yards, and even to this day we say, oh crap, that's how. Pure, unadulterated stupidity. We just never fathomed that the lies could be so hollow, the leaders so transparent, the rhetoric so illogical, and the population so very, very stupid. But after Hutchinson's testimony, we're starting to get the feel that this fascist train is careening over the precipice. And the thundering explosion that kills this mental disease of a political movement is Trump's indictment, conviction, and sentencing. That is the only thing that will shame these fascist supporters, apologists, and even the maggots themselves into realizing that this appalling disgrace that is Donald Trump is done, over, and to be forgotten. Sappers clear the way, airborne all the way.